So thank you for inviting me. I think it's a topic I'm personally interested in, and I think it's an important topic to talk about how Chinese students. There's more and more Chinese students all over the world, and China is playing an increasingly prominent role in the world. So I think the experiences of people going abroad are important, but they also mean something in the bigger picture of how the world is changing and how different perspectives are sometimes conflicting and sometimes negotiating or merging. So this is one thing I'm personally interested in, but also has a broader implication for how we understand today's world. I think one way to start the conversation is to talk about what brought you to Germany and when you moved and what your motivation was to do so. So I think I can start by asking you, Yating. When did you move to Germany and for what reason?
I moved to Germany since the end of 2020, which was basically the COVID time. It was quite hard. I think it was like November, and then basically for my study, because I received the offer from IFU, and then I want to start my PhD here. So even though it was the COVID time, I was thinking I still want to come to Germany. Yeah.
And so I think I see the microphone. So why did you apply for a PhD in the first place, and why Germany? Was there any particular reason you chose Germany?
Okay. Well, it was like always in my mind that I received my bachelor and my master studies in China, and then that time I think I never living abroad for a very long time. I was just don't want to end up my life in China, so I think I want to live abroad. And then I know a friend, and then he was from Germany, and then also from Chinese studies. And then I know that there was a professor like Professor Muhan, and then especially now he is my supervisor. And then I found that his research is really excited. Probably I can try to apply for IFU and as a PhD. Then I think I was quite lucky in 2019, the last year of my master studies. And then the graduate school of East Asian Studies actually came to my university, Nanjing University in China, to make the summer school. So that's why I make a connection with them. And then back then they were actually call for application for this graduate school. So it's kind of good chance. And then I submit my application, and then I received the offer. That is basically the only offer I got. I actually think maybe I can apply for like London University or some other university in Europe, but that's the only offer I got. Yeah.
I can actually really relate to that, because sometimes with doing a PhD, people kind of think you got really lucky.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's true, but often you don't get offers everywhere. You just
True.
have to go with what you get. And sometimes I have that with friends who also study abroad, that you tend to forget you're in a way also a migrant. You just follow the kind of work opportunities that work for you. And there's not always, there's bigger structures at play there. So you kind of end up in a place somewhere. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about your research and what you're looking at for your PhD, and maybe also why you study that topic?
Yeah, that is also quite related to my life experience, because since I was bachelor studies, I would think how China become like this, why there's this modernity, or the intellectual problem in China. So I was always want to answer this question. And then back then I was thinking maybe it's all related to the 19th century, like after the Opium War. But so that's why I picked modern Chinese history for my MA studies. But sometimes in life is like this. And then for MA studies, I work for my MA supervisor's research project, and then which is basically about Sino-Japanese War. And I would say that it is a very important project, but it's not really fulfill my research interest. And then I think back then, maybe that only studying modern Chinese history cannot really answer my questions. I was thinking, okay, maybe I should start to think about studying China after the reform and the opening up, which people already called it like after 1978. So I start to think maybe if I want to continue my PhD study, then I will make like Chinese economic reform as my new research topic, even though I didn't know much about contemporary Chinese history. Actually, to be honest, I never took any history class about like contemporary Chinese history or the history of People's Republic China. And then I just started this application because I will, and also the other reason is that I think there was already so many excellent research in the field of modern Chinese history, like the 1930s, 1940s. Even though I try hard, I couldn't do so. I can't make it as excellent as them. So I think if now I start a new research field, which is also very new for the academia, maybe I can do something. Like people cannot escape me in the literature review. Yeah, that's like quite practical reason.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot to introduce my research topics. So
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, could
yeah.
you try to summarize it? Maybe this is always a hard question, but maybe a statement in one sentence, like what your point is. You can maybe do that at the end after you've described it, but that or just
Yeah,
you can do it each.
I can do that. I can do. My research topic is basically my research question is how did China utilize the foreign export and investment to achieve its modernization goal since the end of 1970s, and I use West Germany as a case study.
Okay.
Yes.
And what have you found so far that if you say people cannot escape you in a literature review, how will they not escape you?
That is a very tricky question because that basically I have to identify like what is special of my research. First, I would like to say that because in the past, when there's so many economists as research Chinese economic reforms actually since the 1980s, 1990s, but they are economics. They couldn't go back. They just read these data, but not archives. But for me, I went to the German archives, so I reviewed these archives, and then I just check out and then write down all these some like details about how China and West Germany, and as well as the whole device and negotiation with each other. I mean, it's basically related to the global Cold War context. So that is, I think, is quite it's something like special because in the past, it's only this field is mainly dominated by economists, but now it's time for historian to enter this field. And then I'm not the only person who is doing this because there's also other research groups in FU and did some similar research, but just to use a different case. And then second, I think this is I kind of like involved in German archives to discuss how German social market economy has some influence in China's economic thought, and I found that basically the word neoliberalism entered China is actually first time from West Germany. So I mean, I can talk a lot about my research, but I mean today I don't feel that I want to talk about it very detailedly because we prepare for another podcast about this.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. I'm still curious to hear more about it, but in another context, definitely. And yeah, I like what you said about the historical process coming in and not just the economical data. Yeah, so coming back to the topic of the podcast. Yeah, maybe you can tell a bit more about your experience of moving and coming to Europe or Germany and how that was as an experience where you felt differences, similarities, those kind of things.
Maybe I start with moving to Germany. I mean, at the beginning it was quite hard because it was first because of COVID, and then everything was locked down, and then I think okay, it was like really. It's kind of like a weird feeling that when you go go outside on the street and then no one was here. And then you kind of also worry about like, okay, if your roommate got COVID, and then we have to like, what is the word called, like quarantine ourselves, and also I kind of worry about that if I will get COVID or something like this. Like at the beginning it was quite stressful. Yeah. And then and except for this, I mean, language was also a problem. I mean, I learned German in China for 1 year, but my German level was like really, really bad. It was basically like, wie geht's? Yeah, something like this. Oh, ich bin gut. Like China, like, how are you? I'm fine. Thank you. And you, something like this. And then I couldn't really understand people that much. And then it's kind of hard. And it was in winter. So, I just the first time experienced that, okay, it was like after 3 p.m., it's getting dark so quickly. Actually, in China, I'm from the northeast part in China, which is very cold. And then it also has like a long winter, but compared to Germany, it's not that extreme. And then at least in northeast China, you at least can see some sunny day in winter. But in Germany, most days was like very cloudy and there's no color, nothing. And then the only good thing about the winter is that it's not that cold for me. Yeah. I mean, for certain people, okay, it's really cold, but for me, okay, it's fine. I can still like wear my cute cool wool or cashmere coat. I don't have to wear really thick as much as when I was in my home city.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is a common trope in Berlin, right?
Yeah.
The winter is the summer really has to make it worth the overcoming the winter, and you sometimes think it's a kind of a cliche that we repeat every year, but every year again you think like, geez, this is actually like pretty hard, especially the months between January and May. Yeah. And culturally, did you feel like what were the biggest differences and the biggest leap in that way from China, and maybe in the way people behave or the kind of the way the day is structured? There's so many differences, right?
Oh, that's really a loud thing. And maybe I also started with the 2020, the end of 2020 when I first came to Germany, because I was arranged to live in a WG, and then three of my roommates, they are like some young German girls that I think basically they are like Gen Z. So it's kind of like we have something like 5 or 6 years age gap, and then I didn't really know how to get along well with them. I mean, they behave very nice. I still think they are like kind of very nice, but still I think I just kind of feel that I'm not really comfortable living with others. I think I mean it's also kind of like my problem. I'm also kind of sensitive, so I just I don't really like joining their conversations. To be honest, I don't know what to talk with them. Yeah.
And would you say that there might be a cultural difference there in the way the conversation?
In the way, and then they asked me something about China, I remember, or about something anime, but still I just don't feel that I want to talk too much with them. I was like, there's always moment like I feel that the air was like so quiet.
Yeah.
So, and then there's also something like these girls, they always like talk or just make some little party in the living room. I think compare with the other, Vigi, they are actually kind of nice because they don't ask a lot of friends to make the party just on there. But then I still feel that I cannot fit in, even though they are really nice people. I think it's also because like in the past, I only live with Chinese, and then we are in the same age, and then we kind of like we have some more conversations, so it's not that hard for me to talk with the people who are in my age. But it's first time that I talk with people with different culture background and then different age group, so it is a little bit tricky, or just my personality, because my another Chinese male roommate, he actually quite get along well with them.
Okay, that's also, I mean, personal differences.
Matching. I think it's kind of a little bit like culture, because like I don't know. I think they are kind of like support Green Party and then queer, and then so. I mean, I respect them, but I don't know too much about this context. So just.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a whole different debate. So one you may or may not be introduced to at some point.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
something. I mean, this is the one point. I think I can give you a very long list of this kind of culture shock or culture difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that will probably come up also during as the conversation progresses. But would you say that it has changed somehow? Did you feel more at home now than when you arrived? And
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like quite extreme. Like at the beginning, I feel it's kind of weird, but there's some point that I didn't mention before because my boyfriend is German citizen. He was born in Berlin. So, and then sometimes I visit him, and then it's like, okay, I kind of gradually, like after 2 or 3 years after the COVID, I start to love Berlin because like everything is so nice, and then I get along well with his families. I feel that okay, it's like I really like feel comfortable living in Berlin. But I think it's also kind of related to my personal experience because I still know that my other colleagues they still hate Berlin because they feel that these people there's so many weird people in Berlin. People the Berliners are racist, and then I mean for me I maybe because like I have something kind of like families in Berlin, and also because my background in China, like I don't really like living in my home city. I mean, just some personal experience. Imagine that you were grown up in a family that your parents always quarrel with each other every day, and for some little things, even though when they cook, and then every time when I back China, and I was like my heart was like boom, and my heart was pumping like this. So that's why I started to get used to live in Berlin alone because now I basically live in a studio, and then I feel something like a peaceful. So it's kind of different, yeah.
yeah, so you would say at this point you would also or you plan on staying in Berlin for a longer time or staying in Europe?
I would say so. Yeah.
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 I
It's
mean,
kind of like because I quite enjoy living here. Yeah.
yeah.
Like I don't know, I heard that many people say that, as a woman, that if you have some weird experience or you don't have really strong connections with your family in China, you tend to, choose to live abroad.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say your view of China has changed by going abroad or by being in Europe? Or because I mean, this happens more often. Like this is not a China specific question in a way, because like everyone who moves away from their home country starts looking at things differently. But with China, there can be other things at play as well, with like how people talk about China here. Yeah. Would you say?
When you refers to China, you refers to like depend on which aspect. I mean, Chinese government or Chinese society or basically lives in China. I mean, if you mention something about like the government or society, I think I wouldn't say that it's too much. Maybe I deepen, or strengthen my perspectives, about China, like, basically based on my research, I have more knowledge about China, about more knowledge about the history PRC. So, okay, if you see that is come to me, it do have some change on me because before I came to Germany, I didn't have much knowledge of the history of People's Republic of China. So that changed maybe. And then a second of the Chinese society, I wouldn't say that it's kind of like a change, but I would call it like a reverse cultural shock because when I get used to the life and then the working in Germany, because like for example, the relationship with my supervisor and also with other senior scholars, I think they kind of treat me like equally. That they treat me like an independent scholar. So they care about how do I think about certain questions. So and then I mean, it's not like something that's very big, but I can feel something from the details that they they behave like very nice. And then, for example, like when I talk with them or just have meeting with them, I just have to sit here. I don't have to prepare the tea for them, and then they actually prepare the tea. Oh, what do you want to drink? I can make you something like this. They act like like a gentleman, but you know when I go back China, I realized that there's something that you have to show a lot of respect. How do you show respect? You have to serve your professors or something that, who have a higher position than you. And then, yeah, something like this, it's like, I mean, in the past, I get used to this mode, but when I came to Germany, I switched myself like to this German mode. Okay, they just, if they want to act like a gentleman, then they act like a gentleman. And then, but when I was in China, I don't, no one treat me like this. I have to act like someone, like a, like serving them. So something like this. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I think you're touching upon a very deep cultural difference also in the way people treat hierarchy, or
Yeah.
maybe you could even say authority, where it's like respected. I mean, maybe there's also an other side to the coin where I also hear sometimes people complaining about lack of hierarchy
Yeah.
in Germany or in the Netherlands. I sometimes I grew up in the Netherlands, so but even I sometimes had this kind of like could be annoyed with students who don't respect a professor, that they just yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just elaborating here on the different sides of the same coin, but it's definitely a clear difference between the two.
I think like for me, I think there's like something like an eco culture here that you are not necessarily treat your professors as your boss, and you don't have to treat you as a waiter or a maid, but I think they do have some boundaries. For example, they do have some hierarchy, like I call my supervisor, I always have to call him a professor. I show some respect. I respond to him, like have to be quickly, something like that. But for like certain young senior scholars, I mean, we can just treat each other like very easily. That I can just directly call him his name, and then he won't be mad. He actually asks us to call his name, so it's something different. But in China, it's like for the same age, the scholars in their 40s, you have to show them a lot of respect. I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like there's something like hierarchy here, but it's just a different type of hierarchy in China. I mean, China is more like authority.
Yes, yeah. Um, would you say that I mean these kind of cultures, they have a big effect on how a society works. How would you imagine Chinese society to be if this changed? Like, do you think this is inherently Chinese in a way or not?
I think actually for the people in my age or even younger, we actually hope China can, I would say, develop like a change in this direction because there's like a very obvious cultural phenomenon maybe in China, like we call something like uncle culture, 九州文化 in China, that's you like particular dominated by this old guy, old people that you have.
The man.
Yeah, like old man, like they really enjoy like drinking alcohol one have during the dinner, and then there you sit in like a round table, and then for the certain the most the people with the highest position, they sit in the certain place, and then other people has to always like we call it 敬酒, like you put your glasses lower than the others, and then you have to drink more alcohol than him because you have to show him respect. And then I think I would say like most people in my age, we don't really enjoy alcohol. This alcohol like a 42, 52 degree. It's not really delicious. It's actually just so spicy. And I asked my other colleagues, "Do you really like drinking alcohol?" They said, "No, no one like drinking them. It's not as delicious as just the drink, the juice. Like, but we have to do that." Yeah, there's something like this. For example, my colleagues, they work in China. They were just kind of like forced to learn how to drink alcohol because otherwise they said that I will lose chance because I don't have the chance or opportunities to talk with these professors in their higher position because they will just treat you like a woman. You're like you cannot drink alcohol. Then you sit in the woman tables, but the woman also has to drink alcohol, like some wine or champagne. But because I'm kind of allergic to alcohol, so I can't really enjoy this type of 酒桌文化. So it's quite miserable for me. Every time it's miserable for me. Yeah. And then so I think like we are just hope that maybe when these old people they retired, and then the whole working environment can be changed.
Yeah, and so wait, so it's even in the university in relationship to the professor,
Yeah,
the alcohol drinking plays a big role in like
true.
establishing your place in the hierarchy or showing respect in a way, as you said.
Yeah,
But when does this happen? When you have like dinners after
dinners.
Saturdays or after class? Like,
Like, I think it's not only like dinners because you can have dinners every time when the professor are available. They just okay, let's have some like a dinner, like we call it like 师门聚餐. I don't know how we don't have this similar word in English, like 师门, what is like
No, no, maybe
yeah, yeah,
circle, professor circle.
professor circle, something like that. Yeah,
And you
yeah,
cannot refuse his.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want some like connections from him, you gotta join.
yes, you just have to follow along with
Yeah,
whatever he
yeah,
suggests, and it's usually he, so that we can just
true.
yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that's a very big difference here. It's frowned upon. I remember one time a friend of my supervisor came. There was and he joined also for drinks afterwards. But he was actually amazed to do that. He expressed a lot of like pleasant surprise. He was like, "Oh, here we can drink with this." He was from the US, where it's in another way sensitive to drink with your students because there's a lot of like sensitivity about the professor-student relationship. But it's interesting to see how these cultures are so different. Yeah. Yeah, another thing I'm interested in is encountering different views about China. I mean, I know from living in Europe that there's quite strong views about China or different views about China and what it's like there. Have you encountered any of those when coming here and ended up in discussions maybe, or is it, or maybe not?
I mean, this is kind of like a tricky question for me. First, I'm not really an outgoing person. You know, I don't always socialize with people, who are not my colleagues or not my friends. And for my colleagues, I don't really have to, we just exchange our opinions on China, Chinese studies. So, there's so many things in common. We don't have to correct each other. And for some friends, they're kind of like curious about China. So they were like, kind of ask me like some question, which I think is like, okay, oh, they really don't have any idea about China. Like, have you ever visited all the cities in China? I said, man, it's impossible. China is quite huge. I said, China is just a little bit smaller than Europe. I said, really?
Yeah.
Really? I can't imagine this. And then I was told them like my experience, like from my home city Changchun, flying to Hainan, it cost like a 5.5 hours. And then, really? No way. No, it's like this. It's so far away. So it was like, I don't know, like it's kind of like the world view. It's just they just don't know anything about China, and then I just tell something that shocked them.
Yeah. Yeah, this reminds me of like how this is maybe a bit technical, but in Chinese studies, sometimes people say like China is a nation, is an empire disguising as a nation, where we understand nations to be like a single entity or homogeneous, but China is so vast and has so many different like cultures that sometimes thinking about China as an empire makes more sense, whereas like there's many different peoples and actually many different like you could say almost countries
Yeah.
within one space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just my feeling is that because for European that they live in the countries which is basically like the province size in China, so they didn't really have any imagination or opinion that living in such a huge country. I would say so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people don't know what it means to
Yeah,
live in a
yeah,
country
true.
that's that
Yeah.
size. Yeah. And also the scale. I mean, the size of the cities, people don't are not familiar with that. Like
Exactly,
what it
yeah.
means to live in a city like let's say Shanghai or Yating. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also something that reminds me that I think like I'll okay yes, this is from a friend. It's not my experience that he told me about his colleague. His colleague has actually something negative about China. And then there's ones that they always have some small talk, like how, where to travel. And then they talk about Tokyo, Japan or Thailand, or, some like Southeast Asian countries, and then they just, and then he suddenly mentioned that, okay, have you ever think about going to China? And then the colleague suddenly said, why China? Why should I go to China? Something like that. And he said that these colleagues kind of have some negative view in China, but that was during the COVID. But after the COVID, I think some of his colleagues actually start to think about, okay, maybe I can think about visiting China. I can travel to China. And for certain friends that I know in the recent years, and then they were actually quite curious about China. They just showed me that I look at this, this city views in China. It looks so cool, so beautiful. I really want to visit China. So I would say that because before COVID, I barely have some social life. So I was thinking, okay, nowadays the young people, particularly young people here, they are quite more curious about China. They want to visit. They consider China as a cool country. Maybe somehow like this. They just want to see this, like the city view or some like amazing natural view, something like this. And then there's another thing came to my mind about like eating dog. That is like
That's a classic.
yeah, it's quite classic like thing. And then there's still some people make jokes about this. There's, for example, like there's one day that I saw a very cute dog like in the park, and then I was like touching the dog because the owner asked me to do so. And then there's another guy was just come to me like, Yating, it's not a kind of snack.
I mean, you can still laugh about it.
Yes,
It's
like,
pretty pervasive. This joke has been around for almost
yeah,
more than 100 years, probably.
like, and
If you look like Korean.
no, I think they actually has no idea like Korean or like eat dogs, or they just think China eat dog. I mean, there are some Chinese eating dog, like
Yeah.
because I'm from Dongbei, like in the Chinese Korean actually eat dog a lot.
Okay, but wait, I also didn't know this. So actually, in the Korean cuisine, dog is more present than it's like it's more Dongbei and the Korean peninsula where people eat dog. I'm just
I
asking now. I didn't know.
I don't know about like the
Yeah.
Korean, in the country Korean, but Chinese Korean do eat a lot of dog. Actually,
Yeah.
in my home city, there's somehow, there's some Korean people, the Chinese Korean, they run some certain like dog meat restaurant.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And then, so I wouldn't say that, I mean, it's kind of like a stereotype, but, they just, not every Chinese eat dog, but there are some Chinese eat dog. Also, I think it's in Guangxi province that there is certain like a Liuzhou, I mean, they eat dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a tricky subject actually,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we might be reinforcing a stereotype if we keep
Ooh,
talking.
yeah, sure,
So-
true. Yeah.
This is also, I mean, it doesn't have to be that serious. In the
Yeah.
end, it's a joke and we can shake it. But I think you're touching upon something that's also definitely there. I mean, you shortly mentioned people feeling like some of your friends feeling racism in Germany. And you also mentioned how the view of China is different than, for example, South Korea and Japan. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that I mean, China, I agree with you. China is now becoming a bit cool, but why has it why hasn't it been?
I mean,
This is actually a really difficult question. Sorry.
okay, so the question is like, why do you think China has a cool image now? Or
Yeah, I think I'm creating a kind of convoluted question here. I think I'm just interested in this broader, like the impression of China in Germany, abroad, and yeah, your experience with that, like in any way.
Oh yeah, I think like the China image is actually quite complex questions because like you can't. There's also no general image of China. China is cool or China is evil, but it just depends on like, for example, I think if we say that China is cool, I think it's probably related to the social media, particularly TikTok. TikTok is quite popular among Gen Z. And then there's many like content creator. They post many things about the cities in China. I mean, this is actually cool. There's these like buildings, and then the China, the very strong production capacity that we have so many cute and then very cool things like DJI, the cameras. So it's kind of like related to social media, and then these young people think, okay, and okay, I want to visit China because this city looks so cool, and then I think some Gen Z also they feel that kind of disappointed with Europe. I mean, in Germany, everything is the same. The city barely changed, but when they see something like in China, maybe so they are kind of like curious. And another reason is that China's image compared with Japan or Korea, I would say that maybe it's about soft power. Yeah, because
Yeah.
like definitely Korea and Japan has stronger soft power than China in Europe. It's actually particular for Japan. They actually started this kind of like since 1980s because when I talk with my friends that they were born after 1980s, they were growing up with Japanese manga, Japanese game, Japanese anime. When we talk about our experiences, childhood experiences, like I was born in the mid 1990s, that we'll just talk a lot about Japanese anime, like something. I think what is the name? Naruto and One Piece, and then we have a lot of things in common. But when I talk about like some Chinese culture, like the Monkey King, okay, they have no idea. I mean, they only know, okay, there's a monkey who is very strong, but they don't know the exactly story. But when I talk with them about the Japanese manga, like Berserk, even Berserk, some quite old manga, they're also popular here. So you can see like how strong is the Japanese soft power. And the Korean, I think it started recent years, like Blackpink with like the K-pop. So it's kind of, I think particularly for the young generations, like born after 2000s, they were really crazy about K-pop. And then there was like a little girl who was like 8 or 7 years old on the bus and asked me like, "Oh, I love your jacket." And then the next sentence is like, "Do you watch Blackpink?"
Yeah, it seems that sometimes when people assume that you're Korean, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard that there's like some stereotype. I don't know if it's true. Like if this all like particularly for women, it's all women like they have a lot of makeup. They dress like something. Some women like me, and then they will generally think they are Korean because I don't have some like bang, like I don't have a Japanese vibe. And then but if they see a woman that they wear glasses and then they just dress very loose, okay, they are Chinese because they're lazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've also heard this
Yeah.
before, and I'm afraid it's kind of true that people think that it's not true in reality. Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think this is something that is being actively changed, like this soft power you mentioned? Like, is this something maybe the Japanese and the Korean government did differently than the Chinese one, or is it something that's just happening because how culture changed? What's your view on this whole process of?
I think I actually talked a little about this with Yating, I think in the last episode that
Okay.
yeah, but we talked about it in Chinese. I think yeah, I would say like government definitely involved in this, even though Korean or Japanese just say that, my colleagues say that no, we are democratic countries, we don't do this. I mean, they actually kind of make their culture K-pop or something like their part of their national project. But I think that is after the K-pop and Japanese manga became popular in Europe or in the West. So and then they realized that how valuable can be the Japanese culture or K-pop, and then they start to make it part of like the national project. But it's not well, it's not like completely dominated by the government because it's mostly, I think, the Japanese associations or Korean associations in Germany. They are kind of like private associations, so they
Okay.
get some like private donations. And for China, I would say like I mean it's quite a short history, even though like we start like Confucius Institute, which is like basically official organization, Chinese organization abroad. And then there was, I think you must hear a lot of critics on Confucius Institute about like trying to make a propaganda for China. And then we were kind of like say that it's Confucius Institute didn't do a great job. I mean, they can. I mean, they do some like very good activities that trying to introduce Chinese culture, but they can make it better. And also, I wouldn't say that there's no Chinese culture who is quite popular abroad. I mean, TikTok is one example. Another example is Chinese game. Because, for example, like game, I think this year has Wuchang, and then last year was Wukong. You know, the black myth, Wukong. I think it was like quite popular among video gamers, and then they discuss a lot about these games, like how interesting the story it is, and then how cool about the fighting mode. But it's basically just stop like this. Most gamers, they care about how do they fight in this game. So I mean they do create some like trends about the Wukong, but it's basically game is a lot more like a private project. So government just trying to attached with Wukong in like some official Chinese news, like Xinhua Shi. I remember that this is something that is okay. We have to introduce our cultures abroad. We have to tell our good Chinese stories. But that was after Wukong become popular. So and then me and Chaoting, we actually came with some like similar idea that because when you do something that we like it's a private project, I really love it. I have the motivation to do this, so somehow it can become get some comments with other people's because we feel the same, and then we feel like okay, we cared, we catch something similar in these stories or in these games. It's touched to my heart, my soul. But if something like the communities or collectives trying to motivate people to do something, and I feel that people has like motivation to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like what you said about how it first becomes these things have to become popular, and then governments like the Korean one and now China, they kind of like react to that.
Yeah, true.
Then it's a kind of like in a way it's a stamp of approval kind of dynamic where after something becomes popular you can say, oh, but this is actually our culture going abroad and we support this. But in the end there has to be motivation for to participate in and tell their own story. And if it comes from the government, as for example with Confucius, it feels a bit forced, and people don't. There is something organic about how this has to happen, right?
I wouldn't say it's more like a force because Confucius Institute actually provide job positions for people, but I just feel that it seems that people has. It's like a job. I think that is basic humanities. Like, okay, it's more like job. It's not something that's really motivate me, that I have passion in. So maybe I would say so. I mean, at least in the Confucius Institute in Berlin, and then every time they organize some activities or some events, it's like always the same. People, the old people come here. Not only like old faces, technically, physically they are old.
Yeah.
They they are liking attraction to young people.
Yeah. To be honest, I think we touched on many of the questions that I personally prepared, but maybe there's something else that we touch upon that you would like to elaborate on or continue the conversation on, like, is there anything in particular that you...
I think maybe maybe I just talk something not that serious, or you want to listen to something serious about geopolitics or something?
No.
I actually have a lot to talk. I mean, first, some kind of like cultural difference when I come here. First, about the payment.
Yeah.
When I was in China, we'll get used to pay by the phone, WeChat or 支付宝, this and that, and then. But when I came to Germany, and then I was told that you gotta prepare some cash because sometimes there's certain stores they only take cash. And
that's very common in Berlin. Yeah.
Yes.
Even I had to get used to that but maybe it's even Berlin in particular. But please continue.
I will say that, and then I realized that I searched some information. Okay, it seems that's only in Germany. I mean, Germany is especially famous for being backward in digitalization in Europe. It's about something related to bureaucracy because there's like so many laws, so many regulations about the digitalization.
Germans love paperwork.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one point. And then the other point is that like white people's food, called Bairenfan.
Yeah.
Yeah, people. I think my experience is maybe it's a little bit different than other Chinese. I would say that I love white people's food. I love Bairenfan.
Yeah, what kind of dishes are we talking?
I mean, for my definition, Bairenfang is something like cheese, bread, just some meat, without not without overcooking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
something like this, and salad. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's definition of this is definition, and I love Bairenfan because. And then before I was going to China, I just doom scrolling this. This social media post like oh you have to make some bring some like a hot pot paste with you and some Chinese snacks because the Bairenfang was so bad. Because I have Chinese stomach. I mean before I came to Germany I thought I also have some Chinese stomach, but then I found that there's some days like I try with the cheese like mozzarella cheese or Parmesan cheese and then this and that and then bread. I was okay, it's quite delicious.
I mean, Germany has really good bread.
Yeah,
You can criticize German food all you want, but the bread is
it's amazing. Yeah. And particularly, I do that time like I make gym, do gym workout, and then I do calisthenics. So I want to control my weight and then control some body fat because I'm not that young. And then so I think okay, I have to eat something like clean food, and then it's amazing. Like Bairenfang is like you have everything. You have fibers, you have protein, you have carbs. So it is like perfect for me. So and then I get used to that. It's really fried. So I would say that nowadays my food is basically just Bairenfang.
okay.
Yeah, I barely go to Chinese restaurant. I don't cook Chinese
Interesting.
food. Yeah.
Do you also eat bread and cheese for breakfast?
Yes.
You do that? Okay, then
Yeah.
then it's real. I mean, it can be quite heavy. I mean, when you're in China, usually breakfast is a bit lighter or more,
油条,
yeah,
something like this.
youtiao.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit less carb heavy, I
Yeah.
would say, but then the German breakfast is very carb heavy.
And the
Interesting.
protein, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I like. And then I basically just use microwave and oven to cook.
Yeah, yeah, totally works. Yeah. Are there any other cultural differences that you still have on your list?
Yes, I still have something, but maybe I don't know, Yating if there's some similar because I think I have some difference, like some dating culture. I mean, I don't have dating experience just because I have boyfriend, but
Yeah.
in China, like I think people treat the social media like WeChat and WhatsApp is differently. Like in China, if I know some people, even though they are guys, and we said like, okay, let's add always WeChat, like we 加个微信吧. Something is like you just want to make more connections, and then it's not necessarily means that he wants to talk with you, and then just okay, maybe sometimes he has some questions, we ask each other. That's it. But here, at the beginning, I made so many mistakes, and then some people just some guys talk with me, and then he said, okay, can I have your number or can I have your WhatsApp? I said, okay, fine, maybe just to know some people, know some connections, and then the next moment, and then in the evening, he asked me, can we go outside? Or do you want to train together next time? I was thinking, no. Yeah. So I made so many mistakes.
For some reason, the whole asking somebody's number has a lot of meaning attached to
Yeah.
it. But sometimes I also think it's a bit of nonsense or super awkward when you just talk with a person and then maybe you'll meet another time just because you had a nice conversation. And then you ask for their number and then it's suddenly like
Yeah.
it is very meaningful, although it's like, how are you otherwise going to keep in touch? And then people are adding each other on LinkedIn to make it like more kind of like a casual thing, but you might as well have exchanged numbers, right?
And nowadays, I realize that Insta is something actually neutral.
Yes, that is then.
Yeah.
But yeah, personally, I don't use Insta. I'm kind of off social media in general, but that's a personal thing.
I feel like, because in the past, I would think WhatsApp is something similar as WeChat, but
Yeah.
then now I think kind of like Insta is something similar to WeChat because on WeChat, you post something and then you wish someone to give you a like. On Insta, it's the same function, but on WhatsApp, it's something different. It's more private.
Yes, it's like considered very personal.
Yeah,
Very
like
personal
yeah.
contact with somebody. Like back in the day, like somebody would know maybe your home address or your home phone, and they would call you there. This actually something you only give to people close to you, I guess.
Yeah.
But for me, it's very inconvenient because I don't use a lot. I barely use social media. So if I want to get in touch with people, I just need their phone number. And I run into this problem because it gets awkward when you ask, and they're like, "Yeah, but you're also not gonna explain, you know." So that's some things are just best left unexplained.
So it's not I would like to ask, is it culturally different or it's just
The thing with the phone numbers.
yeah.
I think maybe it's partly cultural, but it's also, I mean, it also has to do with technological design, right? It's just like WeChat is everything in China, and that means that of course you have to add each other on WeChat, and there's barely any other like way to make sure that you are in touch, and everything goes through WeChat. While here, because you have all these different apps, then there's this one for the personal connections, and there's the one for public things, where it's like Instagram, I guess, is more like the public space. So
Yeah.
you know it's a bit less personal when you chat with each other, yeah.
And then another thing related to this, like flirting, because before I came to Germany, I didn't know that there's a certain concept called flirting. I mean, and then now I realized, okay, if you smile to someone, it can be flirting. If you just talk with someone very nicely, they also kind of think that you are flirting. And then if you send them like the emoji with a cute face, is flirting. I was like, what the fuck? And then I always do something, with a particular, I mean, not with everyone, because I just want to be nice, want to be friendly. And then it can be interpreted as flirting. Okay, I don't know this, but it's so different. Like emoji in China, every emoji in China can mean like people are trying to be sarcastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very cynical. Yeah, I've also noticed that. I had to get used. I visited my uncle who's Chinese, like in February for Chunjie, and I also really had to get used to the whole. Also, the way. I mean, we also drank a lot of alcohol because I just felt like, oh, I apparently have to drink in this occasion. So, but but I also really had to get used to the style of communicating on WeChat because it was so different. And it was like constant, just basically sending emojis.
Yeah.
It was just only sending stickers with like being cynical and then like good morning, but then it means like, are you up yet? Or kind of those kind of things. So that's interesting. But if you say I mean, flirting also has a function, right? You kind of like have to make clear to another person that you like them. So how would you then do that in China?
In China, I think
Yeah, please.
it's hard to say that because I think it's my personality. I just always trying to be nice and then friendly. So I just talk like people. I think it's normal that you smile, that you give people some compliments like, oh, it's a nice shirt today, or you have a nice haircut. No matter it's man or woman, I just treat them like the same. And then I never actually feel that people, think I'm flirting or they just start to have some feelings on me. I mean, even though I don't know that because after many years when I finished my MA studies, one of my friends told me that, there's actually our classmates actually like you for years. I said, no, I didn't know that. I think he's just friendly. I'm just friendly to him because it's not, I think it's basically some Chinese culture. People kind of like they are not so directly with this type of thing. Yeah.
So maybe in a way you might have had similar interactions, but people just haven't told you.
Yeah.
Kind of. And then here people are much more direct. And
Yeah,
like,
true.
do you want to go outside?
Yeah.
Or should we go to my place? Like those kind of things. Where maybe just people don't say it, but they still interpret your being nice as flirting.
Yes, so sometimes it's kind of, brings me a little bit confused, and then like, how can I treat people? Because just I get used to my Chinese way, be treating people nicely, friendly, and then they think I'm flirting, they think I have interest, but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you say Chinese way, do you think this is also like more suited for how you converse in China, like this being nice, and that maybe in Germany you have to be a bit more reserved because people expect that of you, or do you see any difference there?
I mean, like in China, you have to be nice, and here you have to be okay. Maybe it's just a little bit like yeah.
Or maybe you can. One thing I'm interested in here is like you say there's a Chinese version, and you have different There's also this thing you have different personalities, right, in different contexts. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, it's
I'm making it unnecessarily complicated. I'm sorry.
so I have to think for a minute. Yeah, about this question. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many like details, things that can reflect a culture difference. Like in China, yeah, if you know some people, and then I would say that okay, generally we treat people very friendly, and in Germany it's not necessarily, but in Germany there's do something different with China that you say hello with strangers.
That's in Germany more common.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and then in China you don't do this. And then, for example, like I think a couple of weeks ago that I had a meetup with some scholars from the Chinese, Chinese university, and then was just a visit like Max Planck Institute, just walking around Dahlem, and then there's a German man that saw me, and then like we just say hello to each other, and then the person, and then the one. Professor asked me, "Oh, do you know each other?" I said, "No." Also, oh, and then they said, "Oh, in Germany, strangers say hello to each other."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually true. Yeah. I've heard some people say that the reason one reason for like friendliness, I mean, in the US it's extreme, right? People are even like sometimes for Europeans it feels really exaggerated how friendly people in the US are. But this also has to do with how, I don't know, personal networks work, how
Yeah.
important they are for work. Like in a planned economy, like it's less important to be friendly to everyone because it's much more clear what your job is in a way. I'm actually not sure if that's true, but some people say it. And then they say in a capitalist system, because you're so reliant on personal networks, you have to be friendly to everyone because this is really important for your place in society. But maybe this is actually just nonsense because networks are also very important in China.
Yeah, I mean, I think network is also important in Germany. There's a word called Vitamin-Beziehungen, something like this. Yeah. And anyway, like I think when you mentioned like planned economy thing, I think it's quite interesting because in planned economy also has a very long history in East Europe and Soviet Union, but I think there's stereotype that Eastern Europeans and then Russian, they are not that friendly. They are usually act very cold, even though they are very nice people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So then that publicly facing that
Yeah.
if you come from let's say a socialist system, that people are just less friendly for some reason. And whether it's cultural or not, we don't know, but it seems like it. There's this funny story where like I had this friend who moved to Poland and um and then he would also be doing this thing where he smiles to people on the street or smiles to colleagues and say hi. And at some point, like after a few weeks living there, he realized that nobody's doing it. So one colleague he's friendly with, he asked that person, why don't you do it? And then she says, I don't know, but if you do it, you look like you are mentally disabled. And that's when he stopped smiling and saying hello to other people because he just realized like this is really weird. People find it really weird. Yeah. So this is something I had to think about.
Yeah, I found that this culture difference, is sometimes it's not big thing. You just find them from very detailed, like some details thing. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, this is yeah. This is the weird thing. Also with international friends, there's sometimes a lot of confusion, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different codes of how you
Yeah.
behave and expectations, and then you're always constantly looking like, oh, is this actually expected from me? And this is, I think the world is more and more becoming like that because we are, and so many cultures are mingling. But sometimes it's really confusing, and when I'm back in the Netherlands where I'm from, I sometimes feel a bit of relief because I really know the normal code. So I don't have to think about it. I just know when I do something weird, I do it deliberately. I don't do it like by accident. Yeah. I'm not sure if you have similar experiences, but
I mean, when you say that, like just like we live in the global world, and then something like kind of mixed with each other. That's what you mean, right?
yeah,
Yeah. I
definitely.
mean, I actually feel something like this. Like, recently I was like, there's a friend that actually tell me something about like also dating culture, like because I was just to share my confusing experiences, and then he was like, nowadays people don't say that. So I want to date with you, and then he told me there's so many different words, like casual, and then exclusive, situationship.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something. Okay, I was quite shocked because back then, because I was in a relationship quite for long, like when I was in my early 20s, then then I was like, okay, back then I think, or I just, the person, me and my boyfriend was different. And then, but nowadays I was so shocked. Like people have so many words for relationship. You are not just boyfriend and girlfriend. You have situation inclusive, something like this.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many different labels you can take to describe what it is you want also
Yeah.
in relationships.
And what I found is interesting is that in China, particularly some big city like Shanghai or Beijing, people also use this similar term, like express it to them, and then they start to use this type of term.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, and this is quite new then.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Do you know like how maybe because I know from my own like circles that older generations always are a bit shocked by this and like but some are actually really open. My grandma, my Dutch grandma recently said something funny where she talked about other family members. She said, I don't really understand, but she said something with friends with benefits and she was completely supportive of it, but I mean, it happens also a lot that people don't like it. I mean,
I mean,
there's
it's
so many intergenerational differences, and I can imagine the same in
yeah.
China, where it sometimes leads to maybe a bit of tension between different.
Yeah, I think it's in China it's quite interesting because like there's still like some people start to use this type of term like to define their kind of relationship or dating life, and then they use Tinder or something. I think you can use Tinder or Bubble or I don't know this anyway like this dating
there's
app in China. And then they also use the word like, oh, today my dating experience is blah blah blah. And then, but I was like, when I was in China, like back then before 2020, we didn't have such similar words. It's like if you go outside with some person, maybe you are just a boyfriend and girlfriend, or
Yeah.
something like that. And I think nowadays people also still have something like similar in like back, we still keep like the Chinese tension, the between relationship between men and women. It's like, because in China, I think it's different. Like here, like the people they have dating experience since very very young age, even like 12 or 13. But in China, we will always tell that, oh, you have to study hard. No, that's something really serious. You do something bad if you like some boys, girls, like as your crush, and then. So people don't have a lot of experiences like this, so they still have something like, oh, I got a crush for so many years, I love him, something like that. But I think it's like really, if Western heard about this, it's kind of something bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I also don't know because I think it seems that people are getting younger also.
Yeah.
In Europe, like people start dating younger. Drinking is maybe slightly different.
Yeah.
The law has changed, but it seems like people are growing up faster. Maybe also because of how social media works and people are exposed to a lot of like mature personalities at a young age. And sometimes I think that's good because I think, okay, yeah, you need to learn.
Yeah,
You need to
true.
learn.
Yeah.
But sometimes I also think, but maybe it's actually good to say, just wait for a bit. You're still a child, and then later you discover.
I mean, for me, I do think it's like important to have some dating experience since we were young. I mean, it's not just about like, being find a partner or find a girlfriend or boyfriend or something. Like you have to know how to behave with people, particularly some people in a different gender that it's like, you learn by dating with someone, you learn how to treat people, and then you learn how to make connection with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, I think that's the only way
yeah.
to learn. You learn just by experience and making mistakes.
Yeah.
So you have to make mistakes, and also your parents have to allow you to
Yeah.
kind of do maybe sometimes dumb things because you learn from them. And if they protect you for too long from doing things that might go wrong, then you won't have learned. So you end up being 18 or 20 and you start making mistakes. But maybe the mistakes can even be worse when you're older because they're more consequential.
Oh yeah. So
It's like children falling.
yeah.
When they fall, they can stand up right away. They don't break their bones.
Yeah, I think that's also important. I mean, people, you are not only learning that from dating with someone, you learn how to behave well with people, not only, people like you like, but also like friends or something. This is like very important learning process for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, but I think in China, there's still a bit more of like the more traditional structures in place.
Yeah.
And also that children are protected, and also, well, this is maybe slight, not only traditional, but just like have to study really hard. But now the change is coming really fast. I think this is something that's also kind of special about China, and also what you study is like how fast China changes.
Yeah.
Every generation, it seems like the norms shift very dramatically. The economy, the way cities look, like the way people live their lives. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
interesting about China.
I would say like for example like the parents' attitude towards their kids dating, and then I think it's kind of like changed. I would say like the parents like in their early 19 for born in 1980s, some of them their kids are in the middle school, and then I think they are quite open-minded where their kids have some crush on certain people. I would say like it's kind of something like this. Um, it's still like study is the most important thing. Yeah, because we have Gaokao. Yeah.
Yeah.
And nowadays like some parents I think they are kind of open-minded with their kids to dress up themselves during the middle school or high school, even though I mean it's not necessary, but back then, I mean, when I was like, it was just like 12 years ago. I mean, when I was in my high school, my parents don't allow me to dress up. And then, like, when I was a kid and not a kid, like teenager, that's after primary school, that they forced me to cut my hair and then just want to dress me like a boy because that's some like thinking that okay, if the girl dressed like a boy, she won't get attention from boy, and then she can focus on her studies. Something. I mean, this is a really really bad consequences of my life because after that I was really has a lot strong desire that to dress myself up, and then I want to style my long hair. I want to keep really feminine because I hate to be a boy. Because I always told my mom that you almost make the huge mistake because you treat me like a boy, you dress me up like a boy. You can like technically make me have some like what's this confuse my gender.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're here now, you're doing a PhD, you probably did quite well in school, so it has given you a lot of opportunities. Do you think like your parents dressing you up like a boy or being very like encouraging to study that has also helped you or not?
No, I mean it's like I think like I work hard, I study hard is because I want to get rid my life. I don't want to stay at home anymore. I mean then I was thinking okay, dressing up is not necessarily something for me in high school because
Yeah.
it's not necessary. I don't want to get anyone's attention. I just want to study hard. Yeah.
Yes. So
Something, yeah.
yeah, in the end it has to be your personal motivation that drives you, and it's not because
Yeah.
you're pushed to do so.
But my childhood experience also reminds me like make me like rethink about something like feminism or something like the women's experience because well I was thinking why because nowadays like some feminists they are quite against Chinese women to take like makeup or just dress up really feminine because they think women are not necessarily to be beautiful. Okay, I agree with this, but I just don't do this because for some people I still like take the beauty duty like 服美役, but for me it's basically related to my past experience. I was thinking during the middle school, not only my parents forced me to dress up like a boy because also the whole school do so, and then it's quite like a collective activities because so I'm quite against this because if someone like force woman to behave like a man, force women to look like a man, it's not something like freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really agree. I don't know. I mean, I don't know an extreme amount about different feminist schools and waves, but I do know that there's some people who actively support that. Like showing your femininity is also, I think it's related to that you have the choice to do it. Like it's
Yeah.
freedom, right?
I mean, feminism is quite a big topic. I mean, I'm not as expert on this because my study is political economy. Yeah.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
but you have your experience.
Yeah, I just have my own experience. Yeah, yeah. And then it's different because nowadays, like, women are trying to get rid of beauty duty, and I'm doing something like reversed. Yeah.
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 Yeah, but if you feel that that's important, I think
Yeah.
that's reason enough to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, I think maybe I have some. What time is it? Okay, I have something to share. Like
Okay.
another thing, yeah, like when we talk about the childhood or the teenager time, I do find something different. Like here, when I go to the Calisthenic Park, and I found there's many high school students or even middle school students. They really love to do calisthenics. You know, after school they just come to the park and then to train hard. But in China, it's quite different. Yeah. I mean, most of the middle school or high school kids, they have to study hard. They have to go to some like place like after school exercise, but not training, not fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, that seems definitely the case. I think the first thing I have to think about is that the kind of individualistic nature of growing up in Europe, or like most, yeah, I don't even know how to categorize it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that somehow it's important that you have to discover yourself what your passion is. This is like central. Well, currently in China, I think that the emphasis is not on that. It's like that you as an individual have to discover what is important to you as a person, but it's more about there's already a set kind of like what achievement is already kind of predefined in a way by the collective. And so this is more driving. But there's huge like there's huge opportunity to, I think, criticize both. I think it really depends on where you come from in a way, because there's too much individual. I also sometimes think there's too much individualism, and that you are now I'm getting maybe again a bit abstract, sorry for that, but I think as an individual you're not defined by yourself, and that is that you always have to keep in mind like the structures in which you are defined, the people you relate to, and this is not something you completely do by going to a calisthenics park, for example. But this is a kind of an abstract point, but
Yeah, I mean, individuals, collectives. But I would say, like in China, yeah, if in the school, like the school makes a lot of regulations for you, then yeah, it's quite like a collective. But here, I'm not sure how people act in school, but I would just maybe I see something like very superficial that the kids has enough time to do their activities, you know, like fitness, like there's something. Because I see it differently. I actually didn't think about like from the individualism. Like I was thinking about like social culture that here like generally like they have something like sport culture that they kind of like encourage kids to do more sports, and then it's also related to something like a masculinity, something like this.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
I think it definitely relates to cultural differences.
Yeah.
Different ones, like
Because here, like,
why would you say it relates to masculinity?
Yeah.
You mostly see boys at the
True. That's something like I mean, the girls here, also they do a lot of fitness. I mean, but I would say so here because it's also related to beauty standard, and then like what kind of man or is more attractive. I mean, I will talk about the women's later, but for men, I think in China, like. Nowadays is getting more, like the sport boy or gym boy is more attractive than before. But in the past, I think it was like the man's, you know, if the man is knowledgeable, if the man is rich, then he is kind of attractive. I mean, it's related to the Chinese culture also about the history that in the past, you know, people China just now generally people get have enough food or have a better improve their living standard just for just a couple of 2 decades or 3 decades, not too long. And then back then they will consider how much money man can earn, how much resources man can get. That is more important because if you are a very knowledge man, you can easily to get some positions in the society. So I think that is something that's so. For example, like for my parents, generation, they consider like find a man that is like it's not important how the man looks because how he looks cannot bring you food.
Yes.
What can he do can bring you food? Yeah, something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have to think about how, I mean, if you talk about Chinese culture, like the idea of the intellectual is very like throughout like a very long historical period of imperial China, like was one of the highest status. Like status was always given to like being intellectual. Classic. So maybe there's also something there. I'm not sure. Sometimes it's difficult to draw a straight line there between the now and the past.
I think
it seems to be there.
It seems to be there. I think like intellectual man in China has always receive more respect. Like if you are professors, if you even though you are super skinny or you kind of like a fight, and then it doesn't matter. You are knowledgeable, and then they think, okay, I'm attractive.
Confidence,
But here I found that like men man really care about their appearance. To be honest, I feel that, or just the man that I have contact with, that they care about their body. They do on their diet, and then they train very hard because they always worry about that if they look man enough or not. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think I can actually relate. Like, I mean, I am one of those book kind of guys, so I sometimes feel like I'm not enough in the gym.
Oh.
And then there's actually a calisthenics park close to me, and there's these very bulky guys training, and I've trained there a few times where I just do some exercises, but lately I've not been going there because they're just so much more man than I am, and I just go to like a little grass patch around the corner where I do my own exercises. But it definitely relates to what you're saying. Like, oh yeah, I'm the kind of studying intellectual kind of type, and then you feel like maybe you're actually not. You're kind of yeah in the current culture, you feel like you're lacking something.
Oh.
Well, you don't have to. There's no reason, but there's definitely that pressure, and I feel it too.
So you feel pressure, you feel kind of stressful pressure when you are facing this very bulky man or muscular guys, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe just my personal that I yeah, it relates to masculinity.
Okay.
Feeling like less of a man
Okay.
because you're not like super
Oh,
muscle or
okay.
anything. And this is somewhere an idea that's planted into your brain because of the culture you grow up in. And yeah, I can just relate. Very much relate.
Yeah, and also it kind of relates to beauty standard because like man here, like they grow beard, and then they have like they want muscles, and then they
Yeah.
think, okay, this type of man is very attractive, and then they need to be have some like a tanning skin that's
Yeah.
like light brown color or something like this.
Mm.
And but in China, I think it's quite different. Even nowadays, like people still prefer to the man that have like a little bit skin, a little bit muscle, but not to be muscular. And then they don't have to have some really defined like jawline. And then the guys need to be like a little bit pale, not too dark, not too tan. Yeah, something like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because it somehow reflects a more, yeah, you could say more successful, as you said, like somebody who is, yeah. I mean, technically, it's not a to I mean, if you get very muscular, it's kind of a waste of time. You have to spend a lot of time in the gym. I mean,
Yeah.
having a healthy body is, of course, very important, but at some point, it's clear that you spend a lot of time there, and that makes you wonder, like, where are your priorities? But now I'm just speaking, I'm trying to criticize the other camp because
No, I would.
security speaking, of course.
I don't want to criticize because I think each coin has two sides. Like yeah. I mean, if you devote too much time like into gym or something, that of course you have less time for your study. I mean, the same as me. That I think I cannot devote too much time in making up or something like working out. And then I just don't have less time for my research because I'm not a really energetic person.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, if it's something is important to you, you have to do it. And I think in these times we focus so much on work. We basically all spend too much time on work, I think. So
Yeah, and then there's another point. Okay, we just talk about men and now for women, and then there's quite a lot of different beauty standard here. And then here, I would say like generally, people are encouraging women to be stronger. And if you are a woman with muscles, and then like you don't get some negative feedback. I mean, people think, okay, you have a really great body, and then you work hard, you are strong. That's a quite compliment.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but in China was like I think even though nowadays it's changed, but there was still something like you have to be pale, you have to be skinny, and you have to have a young look, like 18 years old, something like that. I mean, I don't know if you know Li Ao. There's a Taiwanese, I think, author, intellectual. He just conclude that what is Chinese prefer for women, you have to forward 瘦白又弱。
瘦
So by your like you have to be skinny and then you have to be pale skin, and then you have to look young. I mean that is kind of like a weird title because in the past like a man always preferred women who was like under 18 years old, like something it's like a 28年 like 16 to 18 years old, and then you have to look weak.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of word, in 成语 in Chinese that, describe how weak is women and how attractive they are.
Okay.
Yeah, and then here it's like different, particular for the skin color that like you have to be, if you are like more like tanning, and then you just more attractive. And then for example like my friend, I would say that because I was always outside in summer, and I put some tiny oil, and then it was like, oh, I really love your skin color, it's like light brown.
Oh
Yeah, it's something like this. And then there's also, because I always train my legs. My legs are actually generally stronger than my upper body. And then there's a friend, like, I know that he wants to make some compliment. So I see that you look very heavy. Yeah, you know that if you put the same sentence in Chinese context, people won't think that it's actually a compliment.
No.
No. Yeah.
No, I mean, even in English, it sounds kind of off, but I get the point.
Yeah.
It can be a compliment.
Yeah, it's something like very funny for me. And then also I found for little girls in China, I don't think, because if these little girls that they were like running on the outside, and then the grandparents always say like 别跑别跑 don't run. But here I found that in the calisthenics parks, these girls are just running, and then they were always just hanging on these bars like monkeys, and then they were really happy. The parents don't care too much about this. They actually encourage the girl to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's kind of related to my experience, because when I learned calisthenics, because I still cannot do handstand or pull over, like you make a roll on the bar, because like I wasn't encouraged to do so. But for my other calisthenics classmates, and then it's very easy for them to do so, because they said that we get used to do so. And then when we have a primary school, like we have to learn this. So they get used to be like upside down. But I never had some experience. Actually, to be honest, I started to do fitness since I was 22 years old. I didn't have same experience. So I'm very good at strength, and I can do pull-ups, I can do push-up, but I cannot do handstand.
Yeah, I think this is something, if you do that from a young age,
Yeah.
you can do it easily, and especially if you're encouraged. But if you're not encouraged to do so, then you won't.
Yeah, and because here I feel that they encourage girls, you can be a little bit wide, and then you don't have to be silent, and then you can be strong. They actually encourage girls like to have a strong body.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Thinking about how children play in Berlin, I think Berlin might be a bit special of a place, because Berlin has this free spirit, and I think a lot of young parents here also have they have a certain idea about how kids should be free.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think kids in Berlin are even more like jumping around and doing everything, and maybe in other parts of, let's say, Europe or Germany, it's less maybe
Okay.
maybe a bit more restrictive. I feel that Berlin really has this free spirit,
So
but still I think it applies wider, where girls are encouraged to just play around and just do physical things.
yeah, and no one say that, if you are strong girls, and then you actually get more attention.
Yeah. Probably that's true. Yeah.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, because my experience is like this, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I mean, there's other questions I think I can think about.
Maybe it's time to make
Yeah.
final remarks.
Yeah.
Final remark.
Yeah.
1.5 hours.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Wow, this is great.
That's good. We have a lot to. Yeah. Do you want to make a final remark?
I mean, I was thinking today, I just basically talk about something like really superficial observations. I didn't talk something like so deep, because it's just based on my observations. I'm not a sociologist, and then I'm not able to put it in a very broad, like a social culture context, or just even geopolitical context. I mean, all of these can be related to some political economy or liberalism context, but nowadays, like today, I cannot think too much about this. It's just based on some personal observations.
Yes, yeah. But I think that's important to talk about our personal experiences, because we as people experience how the world is changing. One thing I was thinking about one like more academic remark here. Recently, I was reading that an essay by David Graeber. David Graeber is a famous anthropologist in the US, and he also wrote a lot about democracy and anarchy as well. I'm not sure if you have heard of him. And he writes, he has this one famous essay, I can recommend it also in the context of this, and it's called There Never Was a West. And he basically attacks how the idea of democracy and the West is kind of like tied by history, but actually where democracy actually happened was in between the lines, was when like a country like Britain went abroad and did colonial activities, it was actually the interaction between other cultures and European cultures where it happened, where the actual freedom was found, because people were looking like, oh, but how can we create a situation where everyone can do what they want to do? So this is one thing I have to think of when we talk about all these experiences and the interactions in between the lines. This is what we could call a final.
Yeah.
Yeah.